Hello, it's Meg. In my nightie, one of them. I wear nighties. Okay. What do you guys wear to bed? Just curious, comment below, let me know. There's just so many different, options, you know? Sorry. Sorry about that. So, this is a book video, obviously, because I'm coming to you from my messy desk. I'm not wearing my glasses, so I can't really see what you can see, but I know that it's bad. It's intense. There's a lot of decks. I was just filming a video, and so that's why some of these are here. And now I'm filming a different video, and then below here you can't see, there's just like a stack of books, which is what we're talking about. So I'm not really going to get into it specifically. Well, no, I will. You know, whatever, fuck it. So it was suggested to me this past year by a professional that I've been seeing for 5 years or more. Yikes. That I could be autistic, you know? And I'm like, that makes sense. In terms of my brother's autistic. Something's wrong with my mom. I'm just kidding. Oh my gosh. Anyway. And we were all diagnosed with ADHD when I was a kid. I was diagnosed with ADHD. And so was my brother, and so was my mom. And so yeah, fun. Definitely we're just neurodivergent. Just a neurodivergent family. And so as one does, as I do, I started reading and watching tons of videos and learning about these things. I also started learning a lot about ADHD too, which was sort of interesting in this way, that I knew nothing about it. I was diagnosed as a kid. They didn't tell me anything about it or what it meant. They just gave me pills. They gave me Adderall. And I was on that until I was 25, I think. And personally, never mind, I'm not gonna say. Never mind. I don't want to say those things in a dedicated video to something like this, because if people decide to watch it, that I can talk about my experiences with those things, later in different, when I'm being more personal and an at present or something like that. So one of the reasons I stopped taking it was because of insurance reasons. My insurance was constantly messing up, and so every few months I was going through withdrawals, and it was just oh my god, I can't deal with it. So anyway, my dog is barking a whole lot. I wonder what it means. What does it mean? Is the mail here? I wonder what could be in the mail. Is it another book about autism? Could be. Anyway, we'll just talk over her and try to ignore that. Well, actually, hold on. Excuse me, Petal. I think that worked. She just needed to be acknowledged. That's fine. Very relatable. Okay, so I'm a little nervous talking about these things or making this video, because there's a lot of people have a lot of opinions about things like this. Me included, perhaps. So when I was 25, I had friends who, just way back in the day, the good old days, I had some friends, and two of my friends that I was spending all of my time with they're autistic. And one of my friends, both of them were "You're autistic, aren't you? Are you autistic?" And I was no. I was I don't know what that means. I was and I had these preconceived ideas of what that was. Also, like I said, had ADHD, had no idea what ADHD means or can entail. And honestly, I couldn't even say if I fully identify with any of these things to a certain extent, because there's just so much overlap. I also have CPTSD, you know what I mean? Which I actually think I have less now that I'm learning more about these other things. I'm actually, I thought that had to do with this, but I think that's why my, the professional I was seeing brought it up, is because she's a trauma therapist, and she's I think there's more going on here actually than just these things. But generally it's fascinating. It's all very, very interesting. I'm not wearing my glasses. and people are texting me, so I'm trying to look. Okay. Sorry if that was like, my voice was too close because I was reading. I had to get that close to it to read it. I don't know, I'm just a little uncomfortable talking about stuff because, like I said, people have opinions. A few years ago, a friend of mine was like, I think I'm autistic. And this friend of mine is in like 5 bands and like, is like, you know, and I was like, no, I was like, what? I was like, oh, okay. And, but like, not to her face. I was just like, what is she talking about? Like, no, that is not true. Like, that can't possibly be true. And then as I've learned more about it, I actually talked to her and was like, hey dude, I'm really sorry, but when you told me this, I was like, no possible way. Like, that can't be, you know, I was very dismissive of her telling me that she felt this way. And that she was like exploring this or something like that, because I was like, there's no way. Imagine thinking that someone who's in a bunch of bands can't be autistic. Like, what the, like, it's so funny, honestly, like hilarious. Like, very, very funny. So anyway, I apologized to my friend for being a dick. Like, I was like, I'm really sorry, you know? And now I know a lot about it. And honestly, this video is not just for people who like think they might be autistic. It's literally for everyone. Like, read every single one of these books, okay? Actually, I'll tell you which books I think you should absolutely read. And some of the books I will also be mentioning later in an at present, in case some people who only watch my at presents or tarot videos don't watch this one. They have to know too. Sorry, you guys. I'm not sorry, actually. You need to know. But these are just my personal opinions about these books too. I'm just gonna tell you. And a lot of them are memoirs. I'm so stoked on memoir now. Alright, so, shout out to Megan Rhiannon. I think that's how you say her last name. She is a autistic... We have the same little mole guy. You can't see him right now. She's an autistic YouTuber that I had already been watching her stuff like on occasion for her video, for her like planner notebook content, because I'm a notebook keeper and have been my whole life. And some of these books are books that she recommended, and that's sort of like where I started from. I think she's even like in this anthology, like featured in it. So yeah, so I just want to say that. This book is called Stim, an autistic anthology. I thought it wasn't what I thought it would be, so I didn't super enjoy it, because I thought it would be like an anthology of a bunch of different like autistic creators that don't necessarily get the platform to share their story because maybe they don't want to write a whole book about it, or like for whatever reason. But it's actually, it seemed a little confused. It seemed like some people who were contributing weren't even quite sure, but some of them just have nothing to do with that. It's just like a story. So it's like written by an autistic person, and it's a story. I did like it. There was one story that I really related to. Not that one though. Weird. I don't remember which one it was. I mean, I remember which one it was. It was the one who was, she's a stripper. And just like how she relates to social environments and like things like that was really relatable. And these are the first books that I read. So I read these 3 books that I'm going to show right now in like January. I think I mentioned in a last book video that I would be talking, that I was leaving out 3 books or so that I would be talking in like a different book topic project sort of thing. So this is that. And oh my god, you guys, I literally, like, I read 4 books in 5 days at one point. Like, I've just been, someone asked me how I can read so much. I don't want to let you know that I also watch stuff too, and I set a lot of timers. And so if I'm doing something, I have a timer set. And when the timer goes off, or if I'm watching something, I prefer to watch things that have commercials, so that when there's a commercial, I'll pause and I'll read a bunch. And so it might take me like hours to watch like one episode of something, because that's like maybe 45 minutes long or something, because I'm pausing it so often to read and to like do other things. So I do my best not to get trapped in a task, because I can do that. I mean, I think we can all do that, right? So I wasn't super stoked about this. I like the cover. I think it's beautiful. And I think it's you know, it wasn't what I was looking for. Now I think I might be more interested in it because I just feel like so connected to and have like a kinship just in general and an interest in, you know, autistic people. I told a friend who is autistic, I was like, I think that this is like a thing, right? And she's like, oh my God, thank God. She's like, I've literally been wanting to tell you for years. Like, she's like, I've been waiting for you to do this thing. And when I was talking to my mom about it, she was like, oh yeah. When my brother was diagnosed, she like read a bunch about it and was like, yeah, it's all of us. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Thanks for letting me know. I read this one too. It's called Odd Girl Out, An Autistic Woman in a Neurotypical World, by Laura James. One of the things I don't like about this one is that it's called Odd Girl Out. And so when I was like 12 or 13 or something like that, there was this book called Odd Girl Out, The Hidden Culture of Aggression in Girls that came out. And there was a lot of like pop psych books about that at the time, which I think would be an interesting revisit. I revisited the book, but as a topic, like that sort of thing, I think might be interesting to revisit. Like, is it still like a thing that's happening? Anyway, this title is it for a different book. It's too confusing for me. I'm like, no, there's a book called that already. Like, pick a different title. I marked up so many of the books, and I guess I didn't do it to this one. I don't think I liked this one very much. I don't know why. I just don't think I vibed with her. That's all. Like, no reason. It's interesting. It's good. Like I said, you should read all of these. She's an author. A lot of these people are authors. Like, a lot of them. Also, I'm a cis woman, so, like, that's most of the books that I've read are that, I would say. It's funny because, it's not the one that I related to the most, which I'll get to. It's not my favorite, and it's not the one I related to the most. So, and it's not the only books that I've read too. And it's called Part 1 because I have like 5 more books that I need to read, you know, at least. So, I don't know. I read this so long ago at this point. I've read literally like 12 books since then. So I should have took better notes. I did start to take the better notes later, but, anyway, there's a book about this. Okay, this one is called The Electricity of Every Living Thing, A Woman's Walk in the Wild to Find Her Way Home. Just like an aesthetic note on like the cover is like, this cover is so like how every cover looks now, and I hate it. Like, I just don't like this kind of thing. I did mark this one up quite a bit. I did start to have the habit of like marking up things when I was like, yes, I relate to this, or something like that. And then I also started to, not in this one, I guess, take notes in the cover. This book is A Woman's Walk in the Wild to Find Her Way Home. So she's walking one of the coasts of like the UK, and a lot of it was that. And I just don't live in the UK, and I don't care. And like I said, Megan Rhiannon, who I found some of these books from, she lives in the UK, and so that makes sense. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I just like can't relate to like some of this stuff because I think there's also like cultural differences that are happening here, and like I just don't like. I mean, it's not like that big of a cultural stretch, I suppose, but I did take notes too. Let's see. Oh, I think something that frustrated me too in this book is that she was really mean to herself. She had like she was really intensely like hard on herself, and I was like, oh man, just everyone needs like a really nice supportive therapist or something, or like really good people in their lives or something. Right. So that was the only note that I really took in this book, but I did take better notes later on in different books, I hope. So this is another book written by an autistic woman. Oh, late diagnosed too, both of them, which I think is interesting. And it's okay, so talking about the late diagnosis thing, it's not really until one of the books that I have here was like one of the first ones, and it was written in 2010. Let me see if I can find it. Probably can't, of course. Yes. Asperger Girls. We'll talk about that one. So Asperger Girls was probably it's like the OG. It was written in 2010. Empowering females with Asperger syndrome. So a lot of these books too are going to be, even if they're written in like 2017, they're pretty like everything moves so quickly now. Like it's pretty dated in terms of like gender and like all this stuff. But I do think it's interesting. So I read all these. I didn't read this one actually. I read, I could really only get this far because I was just, it's it's 2010, you know? I also like don't really like I don't know. Anyway, so I did take some notes. So let's see. Like this part, I was like, I made like a little face and wrote, got me. In the case of women, the same trait often shows up as dressing like a teen, sporting little or no makeup, and having a simple hairstyle. And I was like, okay. So something else in reading these books is that, you know, it's the perspective, a lot of them are written from the perspective of women, but a lot of them note too, especially later on, that these are differences that are first showing up in women in terms of like the diagnostic criteria, but then also obviously in, you know, queer people, trans people, and in one book, it finally, oh my God, thankfully finally talked about it showing up in like people of color, different, like in these ways also, like because it's more important for people to mask. Also culturally for a lot of white men too, because when I'm reading about these things, I'm like, actually, like I know several, like, you know, cis white men who weren't diagnosed until later in life because of whatever reasons. My brother wasn't diagnosed until later in life, and I think it's a socioeconomic thing. Instead, when he was younger, he was like a criminal, and it's very, very obvious now, knowing all the things that I know about autism, and he is very, yes, he's, my brother is very autistic. I don't know if that's offensive, I'm so sorry. Also just in general, there was a lot of like dated language, you know, like she's using like the terms like high functioning and like all this stuff. The thing that I'm saying about my brother is I'm not even sure he was very masked at all in a lot of his autistic traits, but in socioeconomic and cultural ways, like in the Midwest and stuff, there's like, we were poor growing up, and like, I just don't think that there was a lot of space for that sort of understanding. It's been mentioned in several of these books that a lot of these things come up and are noticed, you know, like when you think of like an autistic person, it's like you know, a middle class white man, upper middle class white boy, kid, you know. And one of someone I know is autistic, and he was those things, and he was also not diagnosed. Like very like very classic, like classic, even, you know, diagnostic criteria for autistic kids, and was not diagnosed as a kid. So I think that in general, like there's like a thing happening where people are like, everyone's getting diagnosed with this thing now, and it's like, no, I think that people are actually just paying attention to it in a way that like matters, and realizing that it does in fact matter to acknowledge these things. And also thinking about it so much too, it's like as things progress and as society becomes more and more like connected in this way, I think that it's more and more it's more difficult for people who are sensitive, who have like these differences in their brain like their brain makeup and stuff like that, because I just like, I'm not sure that like in the 70s it mattered to like a certain extent. I don't know if that makes sense. Also there's one of the books that I'll get to eventually. Oh my gosh. Okay. All right, so I did read this other book, and I returned it, and I have it on my Kindle, and I might read it at some point, and I don't remember the name of it. I'll put it below. I'll write the title of all the books below. I couldn't continue reading it because she was like dead naming and misgendering someone, and at first I was like, oh, like maybe it's like a thing where like, because this person used to be known as this name in like their academic career, then that, you know, helps point people to the correct like material and stuff like that. But the author kept lumping him into a category that referred to him as a woman and as like all these people as women. And I was like, why are you doing this? And it was just like, I couldn't get into that. Because the thing is like, maybe the rest of the information in the book is really good and it's useful and it's important. It's important to have like more of like a you know, a discussion about how these things are affecting women and girls and stuff like that. But when you're doing shit like that, it's negating your point, basically, because you don't have to do that. It's silly, it's rude, it's you're othering people. Just like don't do that. You know? And I don't know. But that book was from 2015, so it's probably already like dated at this point. So I just wanted to talk about that. I don't remember the name of the book because that was one of the first books that I also started reading, and I just like I couldn't. I'm pretty good about when I read books being able to you know, change the language in a way that like makes it understandable and digestible for me. I've been like a lifelong reader. I know how to do this. So like typically that's not a deal breaker, but I have a whole stack of like books on this topic to read. I'm not going to waste my time. And if like she kept doing, it was just too much. I will probably end up reading the book. It'll probably be in part 2 at a certain point. I think I said 5 books, but it's definitely more than that. I'm really going crazy and ham on this. So another book that Megan had mentioned was this book, and I didn't know if I was going to get it or not because the reviews were like, because at a certain point with these books we're getting a little samey, and this one of the reviews on Amazon was that like it's like the colors, like it's just hard to look at and it's like really cluttered for some people with autism. Like you don't want to like, oops, sorry, I just like don't know my like what is this, like why have I done this? Maybe I can just like move it a little bit. Nope, nothing's working. Okay, cool. So anyway, I sort of agreed. I couldn't really like, it was too much. I do like a cluttered space, just this one space, honestly. Anywhere else and I'm just like very uncomfortable. I don't know. I would say pass. I would say pass on this one. I mean, so this one actually would be, because it's like there's pictures and it's very like minimal and easy, this would be something to get, and I think someone suggested this, if you're trying to like educate your family or loved ones about this, and this idea of like masking too, like that people might not seem a certain way because they're sort of exhaustively like hiding things. And it's not that they're being fake, it's that they're just trying to survive, right? So this would be one that, you know, is like a book that you give to someone to be like, hello, I'm autistic, like, please read this. And then they can start to have an understanding and maybe they don't feel intimidated by like, you know, reading something like this instead of reading something like this, right? So I think that that's where the value in this one sort of lies. And in that's good. That's a good thing. And also there's like little footnotes at the bottom that go into, you know, oops, some books are falling, of course. The terms high functioning and low functioning are considered by many in the autism community to be unhelpful. And that's the thing too, is like, okay, so Asperger Girls, I showed that one. In the DSM, Asperger's is not a diagnostic thing anymore. It's not something, it's just all autism spectrum disorder. That is not the case in every country. And also, like, there's like evidence to say that the person that it was named after is not a good dude. And so a lot of people find that like pretty offensive. But also like some people who have been diagnosed as with Asperger's, they're very attached to that label, and duh, like obviously they would be. And so it was mentioned in one of the other books that I'll mention later that, you know, the person who wrote that one, they're like, I'm fine with people still using this. And I totally agree. And that was one of the reasons that it was hard for me at first to find some of these books, because a lot of the books that have been written about this, you have the word Asperger's in the title, and they're not really like promoting that as a thing anymore. But again, in other countries, they still use the term Asperger's and have that as like a diagnostic label. Also, just like a note about diagnostic labels. There's also a thing in the autistic community where self-ID is completely acceptable. And in a lot of cases, I have like a lot of other feelings about this, but my understanding of why this is acceptable, it makes total sense. It's because it's extremely difficult to find professionals that understand this. I mean, it's hard enough to find professionals that understand literally anything or are willing to listen to women, especially people who are kind of strange, you know? Like, if you're sensitive, then they just think you're, like, crazy, you know? Like, they just treat you like shit, and you're crazy. I'm not speaking from experience or anything. When you're like, oh, I'm really sensitive to pills, they like roll their eyes. And then this happened to my mom actually like a few weeks ago. She was like, I'm sensitive to medications. And they were like, okay, whatever. And they gave her medications. And then she had an allergic reaction to that amount of medication. Like, she needed a lot less, you know, for it to be like, okay, like, oh my God, dude. Anyway, so people know themselves better than other people do. And also it's hard to find professionals who understand. A lot of the diagnostic tools that people are still using, even for adults, are for children, which is, I think, ridiculous. I once took a neuropsych test many years ago, and results inconclusive, very funny, but it was like a very specific type of test. And in that test, there were questions about pathologizing homosexuality. So they're also using tests. This was like maybe 7 years ago or something. They're using tests from like the 70s where they're pathologizing homosexuality, you know, like, oh my God, dude. So, so there's a lot of reasons to just like not give a shit or not trust like these types of things. Also, it's extremely expensive. So if you are lucky enough to get a meeting to get diagnosed, and use the diagnostic criteria that they use for children, it can be, the wait times can be extremely long, you know, like up to 3 years. Some people have had to wait years and stuff. And also if you don't want to wait that long, there's like private places that do it, and it costs thousands and thousands of dollars. I think Megan ran in when she was finally diagnosed when she was like in her late teens. She had to crowdfund her diagnosis. Like, she had to like start, I don't know if it was a GoFundMe or what she did, but I just remember her saying that at some point, that she had to get it crowdfunded because they couldn't afford it, you know? So it's just like prohibitively expensive and not accessible for a lot of people. For me, I don't think that there's anyone in my area that do that, and I struggle with agoraphobia. Wouldn't be happening. not gonna friggin' happen. Also, to an extent, for me, it doesn't matter. And that was the other thing that's mentioned in one of the books that I'll talk about later, is that for, you know, it's in America, if you have the Americans with Disability Act, you don't really, what are the protections really? You have to prove a lot of things to say that you were discriminated against and getting fired for these specific things. And I already have like a few like disability label things, so I don't need the added protection necessarily. I'm not in school and I don't have a job, you know? But if I was in those things, then I would probably want that, even though I already have ADHD label, so... Anyway, moving on. Sorry, I'm talking so much. I hope it's okay. I don't know in what order I read the rest of these. Okay. I can talk about... Some of these I'm going to be talking shit. Okay, I thought the title of this one was so funny. Nerdy, Shy, and Socially Inappropriate. A User Guide to an Asperger Life by Cynthia Kim. Cynthia Kim wrote another book too, where it's like, I think I might be autistic, and I have that somewhere, and I'll like do a little review on that one as well. These are not reviews, dude. I'm literally just being like, I liked it. I didn't like it. This is why I liked it. I didn't really at this point, I was not really taking good notes either. I was just like marking things that I sort of like related to. I did like this one, actually. It's, you know, these are like memoirs. In this one, she also includes like little boxes that have, you know, information. Common signs of withdrawal or shutdown. why time agnosia, I don't know how to say that, makes planning even more difficult. Like, so interspersed with her story, mine's used and there's like water damage. Whoops. Interspersed with like her experiences and stories is, you know, a user guide to survival, you know, Asperger life kind of thing. So this was good. Is face blindness related to difficulty reading facial expressions? Could be. Oh, okay, here we go. I did take notes. Let's see here. Oh, right here. So, growing up undiagnosed, gender differences. Today, out of every 10 children diagnosed with ASD, 8 will be boys and 2 will be girls. The big question raised by this disparity is, are boys more likely to be autistic, or are they just more likely to get diagnosed? And so there's a lot of, like, the history of, in a lot of these books, there's a lot of, like, the history of, like, Hans Asperger. And, sorry, I was saying Asperger with, like, an accent, too, like Hans Asperger. I just thought it was funny. And then, like, the DSM stuff. I have a friend who, is, like, a folk punk musician, and she had a song called Burn the DSM-5, which was, it was a banger. It was really good. I'll see if it's on YouTube, and I'll link it. I just wrote safety issue to mask. My brother was diagnosed and he was scapegoated and labeled a criminal. So there's, you know, a lot of these things are dated at this point to a certain extent in terms of like the gender differences, but that does exist. And it's sort of interesting to me that it starts, you know, it's like actually like, you know, women are like, excuse me, you're excluding me, and like, what is going on, and like, please help me. And it's like this all the time, constantly, with everything. And then other people are also, other groups, marginalized groups, are able to be like, yeah, also, hey, you know, and like, I just wish there's like more solidarity in like those groups too. I think there is. Okay, let's see. Even when Asperger's existed, it goes underdiagnosed. So I just was making a note about like this idea of like being shy too. Like there, in a lot of these books, you know, these are people's personal experiences with this, with, you know, their ASD, and it looks differently for a lot of different people. And when I was reading this book, I hadn't gotten to books that explain like a difference. They still sort of look like kind of vaguely similar to this idea that one would have about this thing. Anyway, oh my gosh, this is such a slog, you guys. It's been like 30 minutes and I have like a whole stack of books. Okay. Pretending to be Normal, Living with Asperger's Syndrome, parentheses, Autism Spectrum Disorder, by Leanne Holiday Wiley. So, Leanne Holiday Wiley is like an OG, like Asperger's woman, autism woman. I love this image of her like kissing a horse. Like the Venn diagram of like horse girls and autistic girls is a circle. Like, I'm kidding, but I think it's really funny. So I pretty much got to page 95, I would say, in which I wrote a note that says WTF. So I couldn't really relate to her. She had a great childhood. She owned horses. They had a pool. They were rich. She had friends growing up. Very unrelatable person. And then there's things that I did relate to, just a few. At one point she was like going to work early as a teacher, at a university, I used to do that. I was an early education teacher, and I would show up early, like an hour early, and I would like sort of get my bearing on the space when no one was there, get used to the space. And it's something that I need to do typically in spaces, especially if I'm meeting people or having to be social in any sort of way. And then there was like this homeless man there that came in, and she was like frightened, and she didn't really like know to be frightened of men. And I was like, oh my gosh, lucky you. I was like, damn, woo, that's so nice for you. And then I have notes where I'm like, oh, okay. Like people having, she had people in her youth to protect her. Most of us don't. Most of us had to mask to survive, sort of thing. Good friends and community are essential but hard to find. And then I sort of go, I have a lot of notes in here that are like personal notes. And I got this book used, and it was all like lined up and messed up. So the part at the end that made me stop reading this book, let me see if I have any other notes in here, is she was in San Francisco with her husband. He was on a business trip, and she just went along for fun. And she was like going out to make custom teddy bears for her children. And she was like out, she just like took a wrong turn, and she was somewhere where there was like bars in the windows, and like the homeless people were like asking her for money, and she was calling them like street people, and she was like really scared and uncomfortable. But then when this rich man showed up who had a nice car, she knew that he meant her no harm, and she was okay, and he helped her. And I was like, what, dude? Like, just a lot of like classism, and it was just like really it was so bizarre. And maybe I'll finish it, but like I said, I think it's interesting in general to be reading all these memoirs and to see people's different experiences in these things, and to see that there's like a lot of commonality and overlap. But I just can't. I just couldn't. I don't know. I just not for me, man. Let's see. Oh my goodness. There's so many here. Which one did I read next? I think I read this one next, which I was excited about. But You Don't Look Autistic at All by Bianca Topes. Wow. Oh my gosh. I'm such a hater. I made a note that she's sort of judgmental about psych meds, which I am also, but not for other people, for me. Like, I've just had my own personal experiences, but for some people it can be life-saving and really important. And so that's just noting her opinion, I suppose. And then she's really into Tokyo. She's really into like Japan. And one of the things that she was talking about is that in Japan, it's rude to make eye contact. The trains actually come on time, and when there's quiet spaces that exist, like there's quiet train cars, there's quiet spaces in public, and they're actually quiet, as opposed to like here in America, where it's probably like, I can talk, this is a free country, you know? And I thought that was an interesting note too, because of like this neurodivergent idea, and that like the different cultural differences in different places. And so like when people, you know, maybe some people who are like not used to the way things are here might find themselves feeling a little neurodivergent or something. Oh my god, you guys, I'm so like terrified to make any of these videos and to like talk about any of this stuff, because you know there's just like gonna be people in the comments that are like, well actually, and like, if it's nice and you're saying it in a nice way and actually trying to be helpful and not just like, you know, that I'm into it, but yikes. Maybe I'll turn off comments. This is the first book that talked about autism and eating disorders, and that really, really made so much sense to me. So one of the things that she says in this book is having eating disorder. It's a sort of a similar, like, I'm sharing my memoir and my experience with autism, but I'm also giving information about autism, that type of book. And I really did like how angry she was. I did like that. I was like, yeah, go off. This is great. But the eating disorder thing, to get back to that, was like that some people undereat to avoid being fully present and feeling. And I was like, wow, damn. I like to avoid having like a full sensory ability. And I just, got me so good. But yes, I liked this one too, and I liked how angry she was, and like but you don't look autistic at all. There's like a whole section in the back, 8 things we don't want to hear anymore. This one. No, all of them. Let me read them. But you don't look autistic at all. Are you sure you're not an indigo child? Didn't your mother love you enough? Wow. I always color coordinate the shirts in my closet. I'm so autistic. She's funny. She's like, no, you're not. Everyone wants a label nowadays. True, though. I don't believe in labels. You're just you. You're not autistic. You have autism. As a parent of an autistic child, I believe that atypical is the new normal and that seeing things differently can help us move forward. An autistic child. Yes. Don't you know it's with autism? That's the other thing too. Some people, like some people say I have autism or I am autistic. Like it's different. That's the thing. The saying is, if you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person, which is why it's interesting to read so many different books from different people, just in general, super into memoirs. But also, like every freaking group, it is not a monolith, you know? Like, this is, one autistic person doesn't speak for all autistic people, just the way one trans person doesn't speak for all trans people, and so on and so forth. One woman doesn't speak for all women. Like, it's not how it works. But it's been interesting. Okay. Oh my gosh, you guys. I should have just, like, done this even more broken up than I have done now. Alright, this one, these. Okay. This one is called I Overcame My Autism and All I Got Was This Lousy Anxiety Disorder. We have another person with dyed pink hair. I dyed my hair pink when I was a teen. And when I was older, it's one of my favorite dyed hair colors. Could never do it again. Anyway. What did I think of this one? I definitely related to it a lot. I don't know if you can see all the things. Okay, this is when I started taking notes. It says, lots of confronting my own internalized ableism. Nature versus nurture. And having an autistic parent. Just a little note, a little question for myself. So this is really like heavily like her life. I think that when I first started reading this, I was like, oh, this person's like, we would probably be friends in real life. And as I was reading, I was like, nope, actually not cool. There was a mention of ABA. I don't know if she was pro or against. I think she's against, but it's bad. There was some notes that I made, that some things that I related to about, like, I feel like we're like a similar age, that about growing up, you know, like if it really felt like if you didn't have or like wear like certain specific things, like Doc Martens, then you were like a piece of trash, and like some of those things can be really hard, especially when you have like sensory issues to things. Okay. Changing self in an attempt to change how people treat you. Okay, something I really did like about this one specifically is that she had little notes, and then the footnotes were right here. Oh my gosh, there's another book that I keep talking about this other book, but in this other book there's notes, but there's like a whole section in the back. No, dude, I'm not flipping back to see, and this is nice. Like, please just do this. Like on every little page there's something like that. And I appreciate it because I'm not flipping through the back of the book. It's just not how things can work. I don't even know why you would make a book for autistic people and not have it be that way. There's also, she also talks about drinking in this. She still drinks, but she's like mindful of her alcohol consumption because of how it can be used as a crutch. Honestly, this was the first, besides the last one I mentioned, this was the first one that I really related to, even though I ended up not liking her personally, for a few different reasons. But I do have a lot of notes in here about things that I related to. I always read this note. Big me, so same. Which I think is funny. So yeah, I did like this one. Yeah, I have tons of just like little post-its. I do like small post-its and then small post-its, and then depending on like the size of what I need to write, I use that size post-it. So I'm glad I started. I didn't know if I wanted to do that in these books. I usually write directly into books too, but I know I didn't want to do that in case, because a lot of it's really personal. The notes I'm taking is just like is like a journal entry in a lot of cases. But I did like this one. I guess I did. It's not my fave though. As I read more and more, things became more of my faves. Okay, so this one, Spectrum Women, I got this from the library and I started reading it and I was like, I like this actually. And so I bought it and I wish I hadn't, honestly. It's one autistic book I could have not. Okay. There's a bunch of different people contributing to this, which is interesting, but I kind of didn't like that. Like the different writing styles. I also wrote in some of the essays, someone keeps writing spectrumite, and then I wrote, is that a thing? I hate it. Spectrumite, like I live in Wisconsin and I'm a Wisconsinite. Like, what, dude? I really don't like that at all. And so I made notes of the pages that I had marked at first. Sometimes it seems like it's written for autistic people and sometimes for everyone else, and it's confusing to me. Like they're trying to educate people about autism, and then sometimes it's like flipping and it's like, like this inside thing, and I didn't like that. A lot of the language in this book is very absolute. Like a lot of it was like, this is how it is. It's only this way, and this is how things are, and I really didn't like that either because that's not necessarily true. So the way that this book is set up is that it's different essays with different topics written by different people. And then at the end of every essay, there's a section where this Dr. Michelle Garnett says, yes, excellent, great job, totally agree, and like provide, like sort of elaborates. And I just thought that was dumb. I was just like, I don't care. I don't know. Anyway, there was, okay, let's see here. Sorry, if this is annoying. This one person was bragging about not having TV in their house and their kids are autistic, and I was like, damn, I think watching TV helped me so much when I was a kid because I like could like learn things, especially like to read like people and stuff. Just more personal notes. I don't think I have any notes. And then in the back, it sort of introduces the people. Again, I wasn't stoked on this one. It's not the best. Okay. This one's called What I Mean When I Say I'm Autistic. Sorry, I have a bunch of little flags on it. I was returning a cookbook to the library, so I had to take all my little tags out. I'm a little tag person. The other thing that's been really fun is like putting tags in the books and noticing where they concentrate, and I have a different way of doing the tags in each one of them. It's just like, it's a fun thing each time. I really like this one, and it's really small and short. This is like one that I would definitely recommend. I can't really say why. I just like it's talking. Okay, discovery, how I found out who I am, unpuzzling, how autism works, sensitivity, how it feels to feel so much, processing, how I take it all in, stimming, how I let it all out, relationships, how I get along with people, misunderstandings, how people get me wrong, meltdowns, how I reach a tipping point, quirks, how else my brain is different, optimizing, how I'm creating a better life, uplifting, how to support people like me, and beauty, how my heart is healing. It's concise, it's good. She shares like personal things, but also like, and it's written in like a very like chill way. I really liked this one. So this is one that I would say is a yes. Let me move like the other ones out so I can show those ones a little bit more easily. Okay, this one is called Invisible Differences. It's a story of Asperger's adulting and living a life in full color. So this is a graphic novel. It's just like a little comic book, and I really liked it. I just thought it was, it's just her story, and about finding out that she's autistic, and like sort of like the things that led up to it, and then like afterwards the things that happened. And when I first finished it, because I read it in like 20 minutes or something, I thought that I was like, okay, maybe I'll like return it. But then when I was telling a friend about it, I was like, actually, I really liked it, and I think I want to keep it. I do like it. I don't know. I just really liked it. It felt really cozy. She lives in France, so it's translated from French. So like her experience with the diagnostic process is very different than how it would be in the US. Like it was there was like also it's so cool. There's a group, there's like a support group, and some people who are not autistic were in the group too, just trying to like learn more about it. And it's nuts, man. So when she went to be diagnosed, 2 months later, she goes back, and there's like 3 people sitting at a table with her and talking to her about it and being like, okay, well, what's next? Like, what do you, and like helping her. And I like have goosebumps. Like, imagine 3 people that aren't like your loved ones, that are just like professionals, all sitting at a table and like trying to figure out the best way to help you by talking to you about it. Can you imagine? Like, what? Oh my gosh. No such thing. And then there's, in the back, there's, what is autism? And there's like history stuff, with little images. There is a part that is wrong, where she's talking about, ways to deal with it or whatever. I don't know. Deal with it is not the right word. But she mentions the ABA, the Applied Behavioral Analysis, I think that's what it's called, which is not good. That's like sort of the consensus in the autistic community, is that it's like training children and people to mask. It's teaching them to not be themselves, to make other people feel comfortable, which isn't good. And a lot of people have reported having like extremely like traumatizing experiences with it, including like PTSD. So that was the thing in the back where I was like, no. Is that? Oh my God, I'm almost done. All right. This one I really liked. Drama Queen, One Autistic Woman in a Life of Unhelpful Labels. So the chapters were quite long in this. And there's crybaby, chatterbox, scaredy cat, spoiled brat, weirdo, show-off, kissy girl, shit-stir, depressed, feminist, inappropriate, carer, burned out, teacher's pet, autistic. So, like, it sort of culminates in, like, her, getting the correct... I have goosebumps, you guys. It was really great. I really liked this one. This is the one that sort of, like, cemented that, like, I just really like memoirs now. I'm actually really into them. So this one was... And this is probably the one that I related to the most as well, in terms of, like, this idea of a life of unhelpful labels. And the title Drama Queen was very... very nice. Let's see. Meditation for Aspies. So I just like picked this one up too. I actually really like this book. So I meditate and have been meditating on and off for years, which is like, it's so nice because having meditated for years straight, like every single day, like the helpfulness of it hasn't gone away, and it's pretty easy for me to, like, once I start doing it again, to just get right into it. And it is hard to be consistent. I do struggle with that sometimes, just in general. But this book I really liked just in general as a meditation for, like, beginner's guide, because it was so accessible in terms of, like, different types of meditation, like things that you can here. Welcoming meditation, practicing concentration. Okay. relaxation methods, guided imagery, short breaks, enjoyment box images, happiness diary, nourishing TV, meditation book, nourishing exercises, different forms of meditation. So it's not just like you have to sit there and, you know, do this. There's also ritualized processes that can be meditation. Very nice. A lot of people who do tarot, that's something that they report about doing tarot feels like meditative to them. Spinning movements can be integrated into meditation. So sometimes people, autistic people, you know, need certain like movement, like a rocking motion or spinning or whatever. Like it's different for everyone. And like the ways in which those can become a meditative activity. Humming, visual imagination, artistic meditation. It's like so good. And then, okay, so then he has examples: dynamic meditation, walking meditation, whirling, which is, you know, this something that the Sufis were up to. Nada Brahma meditation, Vipassana, mantra, silent sitting, painting mandalas. So just like offering like a lot of different types, and it's just like a really short little thing. I really liked this, just in general, as a book about meditation. Good job. All right, moving on to my literal favorite book ever. This book I related to the most. The way that he was talking about memory, sensory things like color, spirits, like it's just the best book ever. Like even if you don't give a shit about autism, which if you don't, you should. It's just generally fascinating. And it's also cool, and it's cool to be helpful, and it's cool to be kind, you know? The Secret Life of a Black Aspie, Anand Prahlad. This book is my favorite book. This is one of my favorite books I've ever read. He's a folklorist. Oh my god, dude. When I was first in college, I switched my major from English education to folklore. I wanted to be a folklorist. I didn't even know you could do that until I was like in college. I was like, what? This is sick. Anyway. He's a folklorist. He's like a professor. Just like how within the first 10 pages I cried twice. Like I was like, holy cow. Like he's incredible. I love him. Read this book. Seriously, just read it. He was born in 1954 in Virginia, I think. Yes, rural Virginia. In 1954, a black boy is born on a plantation in rural Virginia. He inhabits a liminal inner world where sensory experiences blur together and memory is fluid. Yes. For the first 4 years of his life, he doesn't speak, then he finds his voice. Slowly entering the outside world, he evolves into an artist and educator whose extraordinary literary musical gifts emerge through unspoken neurological challenges. His distinctly American journey takes readers from school desegregation in the South to New Age enclaves in the West to higher education in the Midwest, deepening our understanding of autism, race, and gender. Yes, dude, goosebumps. It did that. It's so good. Like, like, he's, like, living in rural Virginia, and he's, like, encountering, like, the spirits of, like, slaves, and also remember, like, it's 1954, and he has relatives and people in his life that remember slavery. Like, dude, it's so good. I loved it. It's very, very good. This is the best book ever. Okay. I'll put that there. The last two books that I am currently reading. So I did start reading this one quite a bit ago, Unmasking Autism by Devin Price. This one was published last year, and I think that it's very good. This is the book that sort of is bringing in like the intersections of, you know, like race and class and all of these things, and also is the person who made a note about the use of the term Aspergers and Aspie. And yeah, it's good. It's a little bit like, I wouldn't say, there can be a lot of concepts in here that might be difficult for like everyone to grasp right away, but I think it's really, really valuable. And I think that this is like one that everyone should read at a certain point. Everyone should read this book. I stopped reading it because I was telling my mom about it, and she was getting it from the library, and she was like, wait for me, let's read it together. And I was like, okay. So I stopped reading like halfway through, and I just started reading it again last night. Because I'm not waiting for her anymore. Get it together. Get it together, Mom. But yeah, so it's been a while. It's been a few weeks since I've read it, because I had to wait for her to like request the book and get it and stuff. But I did like this one, and it's the most up to date in terms of like how things are, what's going on in the autism world, right? So this is also one. And then I started reading this one, Divergent Mind, Thriving in a World That Wasn't Designed for You. And this little quote says, every woman who struggles to flourish in our one-size-fits-all society should read this book. I agree. This book is very good. And it's not just about autism. It's about high sensitivity ADHD, synesthesia, and SPD, so sensory processing disorder, which Chris Rock has. Chris Rock is autistic. He's sensory processing disorder as well, which I think is, I'm just enjoying my time learning so many different things. This is a cool book. And in this book, she talks a lot about things that I know a lot about. She references the the book Mad in America by Robert Whitaker. I was obsessed with that book in my mid-20s, and I was obsessed with like Mad Pride and like the Icarus Project and all of these things. And so she has like tons of sections just about how like, you know, the DSM is crap and psychiatry is like how they're not really helping us, you know, they're not listening and they're not helping and like stuff like that. And it's not like a political thing. She's just like, I mean, if you're a woman and you've ever been to the doctor, maybe, and you have like some health issues, maybe you know something about this. But it was just very good. And so it's just, you know, this general thing. I made a note that how like, so learning, okay, reading these books, I've been learning so much about myself and also like other people, and also so a way to learn about oneself is through the relation with other people. And in my general isolation with agoraphobia and all these other things, it's been really difficult to do that. And it's one of the reasons I appreciate YouTube and you guys, hi, love you, is like generally it's helped my like confidence and stuff like that. And that was just something that I was like noting. I'm half done with this book. But I just wanted to note them, that these are two that I'm really enjoying. I would probably say if you wanted to like dip your toes into reading about autism, if you're sort of curious, if you're highly sensitive, have ADHD, synesthesia, all the stuff, read this one first if you're like autistic curious, I think. And then I would say read literally all the other ones. Definitely read Unmasking Autism. Definitely absolutely read this. Even I don't care at all. Don't talk to me ever again until you read this friggin' book. It's so good. It's incredible. And what I mean when I say I'm autistic, those are the ones. This one's good too, but it's not required at all. This one was also good just for meditation suggestions. But this one I would say start with this one. Like I think my mom's sort of struggling with the Unmasking Autism book a bit. And I kind of wish that I had known about this one first and read this one first and suggested this one to her first. Anyway, that's it. Those are all the books about autism that I've read. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's only 17 books. And I've, oh my gosh, I read 15 books. It's not even the end of the month. So I read 15 books about autism in March. So far. Well, these are not done, but they will be. I have like 7 more that I physically have. And there's probably more that I want to read. I do want to read, this is the only one that I read that was by a man is this one. And it's also, like I said, the one I related to the most, actually. So, I'm a white woman, and this is the one that was most relatable. Obviously, in terms of, like, how things are manifesting and, like, stuff like that. But it was also just incredibly beautifully written. He's a poet as well. You can tell. It's incredible. I love him so much. Obsessed. But I do want to read more books just in general on autism, like people's autistic experience autistic people's experiences from different like walks of life. I have one by a trans woman that I'm going to read when I finish at least one of these. And I also got some that intersect with trauma and autism, which is like trauma has formerly been a special interest of mine as well. So I'm excited about that too. Anyway, hopefully this is helpful or okay or interesting, and don't cancel me. Okay, bye. I love you.